You stripped the New York Times of their badge, and then you called them diarrhea. You did. I'm just quoting you.
What's going on, folks? We have a big show for you today. It looks like Fox News settled their lawsuit from the Dominion voting machine company for around $787 million. Wow. We're going to talk about that story last. We're also going to cover a few cool things that Elon Musk revealed in his Tucker Carlson interview.
If you're not trying to run some sort of glorified activist organization and you're not care that much about censorship, then you can really let go of a lot of people, it turns out.
Then we're going to talk about the DeSantis Disney beef. What's going on there?
We've got a lot of competitors that are treated differently, a lot of businesses and individuals treated differently, so we don't want to do that. So we want to make sure that Disney lives under the same laws as everybody else. And
Donald Trump logged into his Instagram to sell more NFTs, and he also chimed in on True Social about Elon and DeSantis. So we'll talk about that stuff. And I have a special guest for you today, folks. Should be a great show. Dream Rare Podcast starts now. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Dream Rare Podcast. I'm here today with special guest Bobby Sauce. Thanks for joining me.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so at the end, we're going to talk about our website that we created and built. It's called streamrare.com and what we're trying to do in news media. But first, I have a bunch of stories. I'm going to go last to first. Last story is going to be the Dominion lawsuit. They won a lawsuit or settled out with Fox News for over $700 million. And wait, I should have just went forward to backwards because now I'm like trying to reverse it. But then, you know, DeSantis, Disney, Trump, NFTs, and then we're going to talk about the Elon Tucker story. So let's just get right into it real quick. Elon Musk was on Tucker Carlson, and you know he said a few things. Some were funny, some were interesting, and we'll just start with this first one. And Bobby, I want to get your just straight away reaction.
You stripped the New York Times of their badge, and then you called them diarrhea. You did. I'm just quoting you.
Yeah.
You described their Twitter feed as diarrhea.
I said it was the Twitter equivalent of diarrhea.
Okay, it's not literally diarrhea, but
No, it's it's a metaphor.
So, dude, I went to share New York Times or like screenshot it because they had an interesting headline and it didn't have the check mark. And I was wondering, like, why doesn't it have the verified check mark? But that's why he said they're the equivalent of diarrhea and took it away.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what you got to do if you're a person in that position. And I love it. I love that there's a person that has that much humor doing the Lord's work in some ways.
It was kind of confusing because it's like, you know, I understand with certain celebrities or like they are the New York Times, even though I don't like them. And I was literally confused. It's like, is this even really them? But, you know, my amount of sympathy for them is pretty much non-existent. So,
yeah. And I mean, it's $14. Like they could pay it if they wanted to. It's kind of insane to think that they wouldn't, but I just love it. I love the banter. It's fun to watch.
With I don't have this clip because I played it the other day, but he said basically when he took over Twitter, he saw that the government was spying on Twitter DMs. I thought that was one of the bigger bombshells. So, like, yeah.
Yeah, it just goes to, well, I mean, if you look into, I think it was Citizen 4, that video or that documentary that was made about Edward Snowden, he talks about how basically every single piece of data can be intercepted from anything. The fact that the Twitter stuff was not even encrypted, so they could just go in without even having to try, I think is just yet another sign of how kind of like corrupt, I guess you could say, that they are. But all of our interactions are recorded and logged through everything.
This is my question, because I know you know more on the back end of like building stuff. With Elon says he wants to encrypt Twitter DMs to make it more safe. Do you think those are 100% safe, or what percentage would you give them when it's fully encrypted and they go their hardest to try to make it private?
Well, he said in the interview, and I believe that this is probably technically accurate, that he said if there was a gun to my head, I wouldn't be able to decrypt what they are. So I would wager that probably is the case. Now, on the flip side of things, there are a lot of supercomputers in the world that can process at many, many times what the average person can. So are those necessarily unhackable, or are there other methods by which that they could find a way in? That remains to be seen. But whether or not he personally would have some type of thing where he could say, okay, just unencrypt it, I would believe that.
I got you. The second clip I want to play, I don't have the full thing because I'm trying to not get copyright stricken. They keep getting me on certain stuff and it sucks. But It's him talking about Larry Page from Google, and he said he used to hang out at his house, and he said that Larry was trying to basically build an AI, artificial intelligence god, and Elon felt that he just wasn't concerned with the safety of it, where Elon's like, I understand the potential of AI, and I think it's great, but it could also be really bad, so we should take the safety precautions, and he felt that Larry was totally uninterested, and I'll play that short clip.
But 80%? That's
Oh, never mind, that's the wrong clip. Hold on, this is it.
Really seem to be one sort of digital superintelligence, basically digital God, if you will, as soon as possible.
he wanted that?
Yes. He's made many public statements over the years that the whole goal of Google is what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence, or artificial superintelligence.
So what do you think about that, that he wanted to do that, and Elon said, no, I get it, but you're not really concerned with the bad sides of it?
Well, I think that it's like every sci-fi horror movie where it's almost like the person almost believes that if they were in control of it, or if they could create something that was so perfect that it would never have any downside. And it's almost like the digital God would in theory be the person who created it. So if you birthed the digital God, what are you then? You're almost like omnipotent even beyond that. So I would think that maybe the ego and a variety of other things could cloud his judgment on that. But at the same time, when you think of the sheer power that Google has just as an organization, and at the very beginning when they first started, they were like, we intend to create something that is not evil, that is like inherently good. And then later they removed that from their mission statement. It's like, if you have an unlimited amount of power and money, and you are almost invincible already and probably biohacking more than any other person, and you have all this genome structuring stuff like that, it's like he may think that he already is the digital God, and that if he could birth a digital God, that he would be even more powerful and thus could essentially create it and or control it. So maybe that's what he means.
And I'm not making any excuses right now. I want to be clear for Facebook, because Facebook with their censorship, Instagram, they're not the victims by any means. But what I always found interesting was that every documentary about how evil social media it is, they're always like Zuckerberg's the bad guy and Facebook's the bad guy. And I'm not saying he's the good guy. I've heard him talk. I don't find him authentic, whether it's his decisions or not. The company's made a bunch of poor decisions on every level of censorship and everything. But you never see a documentary about how evil Google is. It's just, or YouTube, where in my opinion, they're equally as bad at minimum.
Yeah. And I mean, being a person that understands web development like I do, it's like the front facing side of Google is the tip of the iceberg of really the depth of involvement that they have. In so many ways, Google is the internet. Google controls and acquires different companies that pull different levers. It's almost like the big food and agricultural companies, or the big media companies, where there's like 5 companies that control all these subsidiaries, so many that people don't even know and understand or even realize that they're involved. Google really is the internet at large. And in a lot of ways, Facebook and other platforms actually rely on it. I mean, Facebook, the application, is in the Google Play Store. Google is making the operating system that runs all these phones. And then also the web browsers that access the vast majority of the internet, including Facebook, like Google Chrome. So it's almost like if there's a king that's so much of a king, it's like they almost can't be named, because it can come back to you in any number of a variety of ways.
Right. I just found that interesting, where it's like, I felt like he was the fall guy for everyone. It's almost like Martin Shkreli, where like Martin is a troll. I've seen him. He's kind of like funny. Obviously, like a lot of people see him as the villain. And I'm not saying he's innocent, because I haven't really fully looked into it. But one thing he said in a hip hop interview one time, because he loves hip hop, he's like, listen, I'm doing my fiduciary duty that I pretty much have to do. He's like, you have to understand that I could be in trouble with my shareholders if I don't try to maximize profits. And he's like, the truth is, every single pharmacy company's doing what I'm doing. They're just blaming me. He's like, so if you want to make me the bad guy, I'll be the bad guy. And I always found that interesting, where whether he really is that bad or not, it's almost like if we just sacrifice this one person and point to them, no one will look at all the other things that we're doing and all the other companies that are doing just as much, if not more.
Yeah, exactly. And the mistake, I guess you could say, that he made is he put a face and a name and an interactive social character avatar on this bad entity. Whereas if you were to look at a Pfizer or whoever else, Albert Bourla is the CEO, but he's the CEO. He's not the founder. He's not the chairman. He's not the top of the pyramid. He could lose his job and work for another pharmaceutical company or any other number of things. So who's paying his salary? Who are the shareholders? Who are the people that own the shell companies that are the shareholders? Those are the people that are there. They stay in the shadows, and then they give you a person to essentially eviscerate for a time period, and then they disappear off into existence and give speeches and write books and whatever and move on to some other business. But he just the moniker that people could say, this guy is the devil.
It's like with politicians, like they're the spokesperson, but they got billionaire donors and corporations kind of funneling money to their campaign. With Shkreli too, he started like trolling Hillary Clinton, and I think he tweeted that he wanted to like pluck a piece of her hair or someone to get her a piece of the hair, and they considered that a threat. And I believe that's one of the reasons he went to prison, where it's like, you know, with his company, he didn't do anything illegal. I think it was mostly like immoral. And then they got him on like Twitter because he was trolling way too hard. You know, like when trolling goes wrong.
Well, the other thing is that these other companies do it in a very tactical way. Like, and without going into too much specifics, it's like, oh, you have a thing that causes heart issues, and then you acquire a company that solves the aforementioned heart issue. This is happening in a variety of other ways. They're just a lot more tactical. He just plowed right through the middle, and it's like he basically ran into the town square with a megaphone as opposed to hiding in the shadows and being like a slippery leech.
Right. Apparently the hip hop community hate him for a while too, because Wu-Tang Clan was like, yo, we're going to sell one album, just one. And he bought it, and he's like, haha, I got it. You know, no one else could get this. Like, you know, he's
I think he said he was thinking about like destroying it or releasing it or something absolutely insane. And I think like Ghostface like wanted to like beat him, like wanted to physically harm him.
Right. when trolling goes wrong, folks. This is the third one where I guess Tucker was saying you fired 80% of your staff at Twitter, and Elon said, yeah, I can operate better with 20%. So we'll take a watch.
But 80%, that's a lot.
Yes. I mean, if you're not trying to run some sort of glorified activist organization and you're not care that much about censorship, then you can really let go of a lot of people, it turns out.
Yeah, so it's like, he's just like, dude, 80% of these people were pretty much just dead weight. And he's like, honestly, as a user of Twitter, it's better now. More people are back from censorship than they were. I've seen hundreds of accounts come back. It's now making money. Like, even though they charge me $8 a month, they give like super subscriptions. So now I'm making like $90 a month. So I'm making money. It works better. There's less censorship. It's funnier. He's putting government funded people. Like, yeah, 80% of the staff gone, and it's working better.
Right, because all of the people that were working at Twitter were all employees of Twitter, including Parag Agrawal, who's the CEO at the top. He's collecting a salary just like everybody else. So it's like, what would be more valuable than income? Power, influence, right? The ability to control the messaging and the narrative. So if the company doesn't need to ever make money and the shareholders are purchasing shares, the common man is purchasing more shares for a company that doesn't make money, and they were getting that money for almost zero interest for so many years. It's like the company didn't need to make money. All it had to do was wield power, and it was solving a need to someone. The shareholders were relatively happy because the stock price was going up, kind of like everything else was. And all the people that used it were happy because the voices that they had that were feeding into the power structure were getting amplified. The only people that were not happy were us, and who really cares what we think? As long as we're there using it, then they didn't really care about us.
For sure. I'm going to read Trump's response in a second, but first I just wanted to weigh in on what, and I don't feel like I have to do this disclaimer, but to those, I'm not telling you to plant a computer chip in your head and run off into a meadow with Elon Musk and a robot. So just because I compliment one aspect of what he's doing, it doesn't mean I'm unaware of other things and I'm not skeptical. So let's just be clear about that, because people act like I'm telling them to turn into a transformer, use the wrong bathroom, and put a computer chip in their brain. And, you know, I'm not saying that. But with that being said, put a computer chip in your brain and go. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, jokes aside, I think what he's doing with the government funded stuff, like, you know, I think it was CBC, the Canadian broadcast, whatever corporation, you know, they said we're under 70%, you know, government funded. So Elon put 69% government funded as a tag that they can't get rid of. Yeah. And a lot of people, he took away New York Times' badge. He gave everyone else badges to make all these loser journalists feel irrelevant. a few media companies that are big, I forget which ones, said they're going to stop posting on Twitter. So they're actually going to lose a lot of money, because I don't know if it's 10, 20, 30, 40% of the money they make, but Twitter is huge for news. I would argue one of the biggest. Maybe Facebook makes them more money, but Twitter in relevancy is huge. So he's actually putting his money where his mouth is. He's revealed a lot of stuff about the website. He's holding the media accountable, making them feel stupid. And then also, he's not, sorry to compare him to Trump right now, but like Trump drives a lot of revenue to the people he hates. Elon's actually like getting revenue out of them and exposing them for being government funded. I love what he's doing. I appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. It's finally good to see at least the slightest bit of a W in a long string of what seem to be nonstop L's that we're getting.
For sure. And I'll read Trump's take of it now because, to me, I understand some of the stuff Trump's saying, and I'm not opposed to criticizing or challenging Elon. I think he needs it on other topics. But to me, like, have a little bit of grace and humility to be like, hey, I appreciate that you're letting everyone know. Because, dude, on Twitter, Trump could fight him like he's fighting DeSantis. But, dude, Republicans on Twitter love him. Like ALX, who loves Trump. Like Elon's interacting with people, boosting people. He's helping us a lot by evening the playing field on Twitter. He's helping the Republican Party, whether he says it or not. And for Don to just put this out, like, it almost feels to me like he's jealous that all his supporters are watching Fox News and Tucker talk to him, and he just needs to like throw Elon down instead of being like, hey, thank you for doing that. That's helpful. So I'll read it in my Trump voice because it would just be boring if I didn't. This is Trump on Truth Social. He said, I don't believe Elon Musk voted for Biden, not for a minute. He told me that he voted for me, but who knows about that, and who cares? It's like, you clearly care if it's the first line of your sentence, but he says, Elon is just trying to make friends with the absolutely horrible Biden administration because of all the government subsidies he gets and all the permits he needs. His space company, car company, battery company, tunnel company, and even Twitter, which was illegally controlled by the FBI, needs government help and subsidies. He's just mending fences. So that's his take on it.
If he's mending fences, I think he's doing probably a pretty bad job of doing it. I mean, if you think about SpaceX saved the U.S. government way more money than we were already spending. As a privately owned company that was focused on the bottom line, they actually saved the U.S. government. I think he reduced the cost of moving equipment from here to the International Space Station by like a factor of 80%, or like some astronomical sum. So he's actually saving the taxpayer money in that respect, and it would only cost more to have him lose those contracts. As far as the subsidies that Tesla is getting, well, that's because all of the other car companies were getting them. And then I would say that Biden intentionally left Tesla out of almost every conversation. They had the electric vehicle day, and he never mentions Tesla. He never mentions Elon. They already have been shelving him, and all of those subsidies and whatnot were in place before Biden anyway. So I don't understand how that is connected.
Yeah, I don't trust NASA, but I know what Elon does is he has certain tangible products. Like, regardless of what you think about the moon landing, it's like Tesla has real cars. Like, we could talk about the cobalt mines and stuff and subsidies, but right. I know he does things. And his rockets, they go up and they go down. I don't know where they're going, but they do land. So it saves money. They don't just disappear into nowhere, go into the ocean. So, the thing is the timing of it too. It's like, I don't mind criticizing things that Elon does, but Trump's trying to once again just paint this picture as if he's just working with the FBI and like, it was illegally controlled by that. And then he revealed that. He didn't have to reveal that. That's what it was. It's not like Elon's the one that's at fault for that. Right. He showed the whole world. He did something transparent that no one's really done. We all kind of knew it, but he showed it. He showed proof of it. He showed emails. Like you said, he pushed the Biden administration so much, helping Republicans, that he got left out on the ESG deal, and they're starting to help all the other left-wing car companies instead of Elon. I'm not saying he's the savior, but it's like, to me, it just seems like Trump's jealous that he's getting a lot of attention on Fox News, and Trump has to let everyone know, Elon, he's just not me, I'm me, he's him, like, get over him, get back to me now. He voted for me. He didn't vote for Biden. It's like, what? I mean, it is sus voting for Biden, but it's like, I don't know.
Well, in addition to that, Biden has I would almost say actively marketed the other competitive electric vehicles. And they celebrate all these large plants opening. I'm pretty sure the Tesla factory that Elon opened in Texas is the largest manufacturing plant opened in America in a really long time. And it's like, they didn't even talk about that. That wasn't any of the press hits. So I would say that he's by no stretch of the imagination on their side or mending any fences or in their good graces to any degree.
Right. And I try to hit it with grace as much as I can, because it's like at the end of the day, people were even saying with certain stuff like Elon's not getting anyone held accountable. And I'm like, he's not in government. Like the GOP's job is to hold people accountable. They're lawmakers. Elon Musk is not only a private citizen, but he's a business owner. So, and he does business globally. So he could easily just never do anything. Like I don't expect anything from anyone. So the fact that he even went out on a limb and did this stuff is more than most. I appreciate that. I'm skeptical of some things, but when I listen to him in the interview, he comes off pretty authentic when he talks about this type of stuff. And even with AI, the truth is, for a while, I felt like everyone else where I'm like, oh, I don't want to hear him talk about it, but he's been warning about it for years. Now I'm starting to see how powerful AI is. It's making images. It's able to do a lot of things better than humans that, it's making, I would say, captions. So now it is coming to be a thing. And he's been warning, not like, oh, this is all bad. It's just like, we need to regulate this and pay attention to it. And I appreciate what he's doing. I'm still skeptical of some, but yeah, I don't know. For Trump to just act like he's doing nothing, it's just like getting annoying to me. But
the other question is there a technology advocate for the common man that is front and center, that all of us know and are aware of in any other capacity? Is there any other, let's not even say right wing, let's just say not predominantly left wing, powerful entity that speaks directly to us about the real challenges that are ahead? I would say that nobody has done that to the degree that he has. And what he's talking, and people get really upset about the chip in the brain process, and I understand that. They say it's biblical or whatever is the case, but it's like, we are basically already using a digital extension of ourselves with our phones. And there's a variety of different things that we do every day that interact with each other, that track, trace, and database everything that we're doing. And a lot of it, actually, interestingly enough, is good. So it's like, it's good to have at least one slightly on our side advocate to then go after just the one guy. It's like, this is why nobody wants to say anything on behalf of, I guess you could say, free thinking, independent thinking Americans with foresight that aren't roped into the matrix.
I'm never putting a chip in my brain, but if everyone's working on the technology and it's going to be there, I guess, having someone talking authentically about it versus like Google having monopoly rights on it and you know what I'm saying, trying to mandate it or something. It's definitely like one of those things that I'm skeptical of, but let's talk about just the media angle of it. I look at results. So I know that Trump woke a lot of people up to how fake the media was. And some people say to me like, yo, he's the one who woke everyone up. And the truth is, he helped me learn a lot of great values, and I was growing up as a man, so I started learning conservative values, and I appreciate him for loving America and not hating America like everyone else. But I knew the media was corrupt since I was like 16 years old, so not everyone learned the media was corrupt. That's fine if he woke you up, that's amazing, but then it comes like, okay, so how are we going to stop the media? One way that Trump did was True Social, right? But that was a sloppy rollout, and he had Getter come out first, and everyone thought that was Trump's Getter, so everyone got on because it was his campaign manager. And then like a couple months later, he launches another one. They fragment into two places doing the same thing, and the rollout put you on a waiting list where you couldn't even do it. So like, to me, that was like a half-assed attempt at fighting the media. And then you look at everything he does where it's like he generates headlines, he gives them money, he's helping them with his presence. If he comes back, CNN, all this arrest stuff is helping all the, where Elon, by labeling them government funded and then also driving them away from Twitter because they don't want to be seen as government funded, even though they're embarrassed. Like, and I think NPR said they're going to stop posting. They're going to lose a lot of clicks, probably millions upon tens of millions of clicks. So that's tangible outside of my opinion of Trump and Elon. He's weakening the media, like tangibly. So I appreciate it.
Yes, no, exactly. And it also is very interesting because, there's so many other creators on the left that get risen by the people that are above them, and they all cross pollinate and they all unify with one. I would say, terrible message more often than not, but they do unify and they lift each other up. Whereas like if Donnie was to give an interview to a lesser known channel and not just Nelk Boys, which was I think the only one that I saw, it's like if he was to do interviews with lower tier creators, the message would get out there and all of those people would be lifted up so that their message was able to permeate. So there wasn't just Fox News. So that wasn't the only platform that actually exists. Why not do one on Newsmax? Why not do an interview on one of these other platforms and elevate their status? But
he does some on Newsmax and some other stuff, but I think your point's valid where Biden is giving a bunch of TikTokers like an entire wing of the White House or something. Like he's really focused on find me little kids that, I could sniff. No, I'm just kidding. Find me little kids that that'll like, donate to me or like they'll love me and, and they're like doing everything they can to cultivate that. I think the GOP would be wise to seek out some good influencers. I want to play this clip of DeSantis. He's going after Disney. He lives in Florida. He's the governor. He's going after Disney further. So I'll play the clip and then we'll talk about it and we'll read Trump's statement because he made a statement about the Disney thing too. He seems like he disagrees with DeSantis here. So let's play the clip.
As a state, as a people, through the medium of our elections, that we would not have one corporation serving as its own government. That's not good government, and it's not something that we want to entertain in Florida any longer. And whatever rationale there was 60 years ago to do that, clearly now we're in a much different era as a state. We've got a lot of competitors that are treated differently, a lot of businesses and individuals treated differently, so we don't want to do that. So we want to make sure that Disney lives under the same laws as everybody else. And some of that has already been underway. Once the state board took over, we began mobilizing state agencies to ensure that Disney's following the same rules, building inspection, safety, all these other things that they were exempt from when everybody else has to follow. Now, if these are not good laws, then everyone should be exempt. You shouldn't just say one corporation should be exempt. So that's already been done. We're also working with the legislature. We expect the legislature to provide a legislative amendment, a provision. This monorail is exempt. They exempted the monorail from any safety standards or inspections. So they're going to go and make sure that the monorail is subject to oversight, just like everything else would be in the state of Florida. And Commissioner Simpson will talk a little bit more about what the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services do, but they have oversight over amusement park safety, generally speaking.
So I guess the gist of it is, and I'll read a few things after because Chris Christie is complaining. Donald Trump's complaining, saying it's a bad move. So there's a lot of backlash in the GOP. But basically, it seems like what he's doing is he's taking away their special privilege that Disney's always had. And it seems like the reason he's doing it is not just because Disney's pushing like far left-wing sexual stuff on the kids, but they're also, I think they were undermining certain laws that he passed and saying, we're not going to follow. So then I think that was DeSantis's like chess move to be like, well, if you're not going to follow the laws that our state voted for and passed, then I'm taking your special privilege away and you could be like every other corporation.
Well, right, and it also gives them a competitive advantage over any other theme park that was to compete with them or be created. So it's like in them getting outside of these laws allows them to save a whole ton of money. You can't compete with somebody that has the scale artificially tipped in their favor. So good on him for finding a cause that would kind of get the public to back this agenda and or advancement towards removing that right for them. So I think that's the correct move. I think it's good overall for sure.
Well, Big Daddy Donald J. Trump, he disagrees. And I know there's a lot of people saying, oh, please do the groan. So I'll do I'll do it this time for the fans out there. But here's Donald Trump on True Social. I'll read it in my Trump voice. This is what he said about DeSantis' move about Disney. He said, DeSantis is being absolutely destroyed by Disney. His original PR plan fizzled, so now he's going back with a new one in order to save face. Disney's next move will be the announcement that no more money will be invested in Florida because of the governor. In fact, they could even announce a slow withdrawal or sale of certain properties or the whole thing. Watch. That would be a killer. In the meantime, this is also a political stunt. Ron should work on the squatter mess.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a business standpoint that does logically make sense. However, it's not very easy to move a theme park, and in addition to that, that doesn't mean that the free market wouldn't refill that spot with something else, with another person or another entity that could compete. It's like if a hotel goes down in Las Vegas on the Strip, it's not like no hotel figures out a way to scoop it up and maximize it. So I just don't know that the free market would allow that to happen. Yes, that may be a temporary short-term L, but I really don't think it would play out for the worse in the long term.
On Twitter, I follow Jesse Kelly. He's funny on Twitter, and he said, "Yeah, no, I agree, Trump. He's like, we should let Trump and Caitlyn Jenner fight the culture war against us and just give up or whatever." And I thought that was funny. But here's the thing that I think that conservatives are a little short-sighted on, because obviously business matters, and I see where he's coming from. But this just kind of shows with Don Jr. being like, yo, back off Anheuser-Busch, because everybody figured out that Anheuser-Busch gives more money to Republicans than Democrats. And DC Drano pointed out that they give like 60% of money to Republicans and 40% to Democrats. So they're still giving money to Democrats too. And it's like that's kind of the gist of the GOP. It's like, yeah, we want the money and the business and the donors and the lobbying money. Trump also took $10 million from an individual at Disney, some sort of executive there. So he got a $10 million check for one of his like PACs or corporations or whatever campaigns. I mean, but the thing is, it's like, if Disney, you disagree with Disney because they're making your kids gayer than you want them to be, and then you're like, I'm morally opposed to that, but then it's like, but it's business, and then you just go along with it. It's like, isn't that kind of the whole reason that Republicans lose? They cheer when like left-wing tech companies come to Texas, and then these people are going to dump money into Texas and turn the whole state into Austin. Like, shouldn't people take an actual cultural stance instead of just being like, well, at least we're making money off them?
Yeah, and it's almost like a fatal error on the part of Don Jr. revealing that on video, because basically what that means is that any other matter behind the scenes that we don't hear about is subject to those same rules. And in the event that there was to be some other actor that was to say, listen, we're going to give you X, Y, and Z, which is what we all thought to begin with, now it's like point blank proven right in front of our face. So that was a fatal error, but something we knew all along.
It's just funny to me because I'm trying to not annoy people, because I get some people don't want to hear what I'm saying, and I don't want to be repetitive, but it's like people couldn't figure this out during 2020 and 2021. The best theory that I've heard is like that Trump just doesn't know any better, but like he's not a dumb guy. Like he's actually smart. So like he took $1 million from Pfizer. He took hundreds of millions of dollars from corporations. People don't want to look at it because Trump told him on the campaign, I'll never take anyone's money. And honestly, I believed it for a few years. But when I went back and did research, I realized he actually lied. He did take the donor money that he said was going to turn Marco Rubio into a puppet, Sheldon Adelson money. He took hundreds of millions of dollars from corporation. And then he did what everyone else does. He ran around the country selling the vaccine. So it's like you hate Anheuser-Busch until you realize they give you money. And then hey, let's back off. Me and Caitlyn Jenner are going to stop this trans protest because like now it's not bad. Or like, hey, like Disney, Disney needs to stay there because, they make money, or, this is the greatest human achievement because you did vaccine socialism for them. I mean, this is who Donald Trump is. It's just people don't want to believe that because it's like scary. It's like, no, it's just Mitch McConnell. And it's like, no, it's also Trump. Like, no, it's just DeSanctimonious. Like, you loved DeSantis until Trump told you not to. I've critiqued DeSantis's policy since 2019. When I was critiquing his speech laws, no one was there with me because it's like the day that Trump told them to hate DeSantis, they hated DeSantis. I don't mind the criticism, but it's like people have really been put under a spell by this guy, and I think it's going to be the downfall of the party unless people wake up.
Yeah, well, two things can be true at the same time. You can like Donnie and most of the things that he does and the things that he represents, and you can also point out the things that you believe would be errors that would ultimately hurt us in winning, because isn't that the goal, right? The goal is to win the next election. Otherwise, we're in a lot of trouble. You can point these things out and still like him. I think what you said the other day on your live stream was very poignant and accurate, which is that so many people are in love with the personality of the man, and it makes them look turn the blinders on to the things that actually happen. And then people also confuse these two things where they say that any criticism of Donnie in the forefront right now means that you are for DeSantis or there's some ulterior motive, where it's like there's things to point out on either side. He's just giving us more stuff to look at that we're like, this is a communications blunder. This is something that your guys are trying not to look for that ultimately is going to hurt us. Because I've said it before several times. The only thing that matters at the end of all of this, my only objective is for us to win the president in 2024. That's the only objective. And the only way that I believe that is won is by convincing the 10% of people in the middle of the electorate that are moderate, don't really pay attention, or are center left that are frustrated with economic matters and foreign wars and are like, you know what? This guy actually kind of doesn't make me angry. I don't strongly dislike this guy. I'm willing to give this person a shot because they're not insulting Rosie O'Donnell or whatever. People love the personality, but they're not looking at the things that actually happened.
And I used to like that stuff because I mean I'm a bit of a troll on the inside where it's like you're ugly, and I'm like, I mean, he's not wrong. She's disgusting. I agree. But at a certain point, like now it's just coming off petty where it's like he's not just going after Mika Brzezinski. It's like Elon does something that's actually really good, and he can't even give a compliment. Like I could say I agree with that of Elon, but I don't agree with the subsidies. He's just like, you're no good. And then like the Disney thing, I guarantee you, if Donald Trump wasn't running against DeSantis, he would be on board with the Disney thing. He's just running against him, so he has to pretend he's not. And to me, I don't know. I'm only one voter, so maybe this shtick with Trump will work. But it's like DeSantis is kind of ignoring him and just executing things that make sense. And Trump is so desperate to tie down, or make DeSantis look stupid. He's willing to lie over it and accuse DeSantis of things that Trump also does, where it's like, you could point out the flaws in DeSantis and I'll agree with you. But when you're like, I know for a fact if he wasn't running, Trump you think he like really wants to save special privileges for Disney? Like that's Trump's hill to die on. Like Disney deserves more privileges than any other corporation, and this is just a big PR stunt. Like it's kind of like with Elon. It's like if you use the power that you have and say, hey, I don't have all the power, but I do have the power to put government funded and embarrass you for who you really are and expose you for who you really are. And then NPR says, I don't want to be here. That's a massive win for us. If Disney leaves and goes somewhere else, I mean, it's maybe not the best for jobs and business, but at a certain point, you're going to have to decide where it's like, do you want, $5 billion and the sexual perversion of like 5-year-olds? Or are you willing to take a stand against that? Like with Anheuser-Busch, it's the same thing. It's like, I don't care which one you believe, because I think sometimes they spend a little too much energy on certain things, but like, do you believe that's so bad you want to boycott, or do you care about $5 million in donor money? Like which is more important to you? Because to me, I think the values are more important, but I really don't think Trump's that guy. And I really think he cares so much about his own status that he's willing to lie about anything, push any good person to the curb, whether it's Thomas Massey, somebody revealing the truth about Twitter. He has no like principles at all. And he's willing to make any sort of sideshow, and it's working fantastically for him. So there's really no reason for him to stop.
I think that the thing that's becoming clearer to me as time goes on is that in 2016, I really wholeheartedly felt like his only interest was saving America and loving America and the interest of the people. And you've said it before, where it's like he was in the pulse. When something happened, he was commenting on that thing, saying what we were all feeling. Right. But now it's almost like I feel like 30% of why he's running is because he doesn't want to be the guy that lost. He doesn't want his character arc to have ended in this defeat to Joe Biden. So it's like it's 70% about the country in America, but 30% of it is about kind of saving face and saying, I'm not going to go out on my back. And I think that the things that he does communications wise illustrate that truth, where it's like when he posted those NFTs today in this opportunity where he really could have spoken to the people and it would have made headline news around the world, no matter what it was, he chose to do something that was self-serving, that isn't even about the campaign, as opposed to doing something that would be outwardly convincing the people that his main and primary sole goal was for America, which I think the communication is not showing. And his other actions are making it clearer to me that that's the case. Whereas every single time I see DeSantis, he is talking about something that affects the common person. Every single time. I don't ever see him doing anything not that. I don't ever see him talking about anything that's not in service of people. And I get it, he's in office, but Communication is how the game is won and lost. And I just think DeSantis is doing a better job presently. That's all.
I'm going to skip over the Chris Christie thing. Just like I was going to make a joke about Chris Christie, but I'm going to just not do that. I'm going to skip over that story. We'll talk about the NFTs, but I know you were at the TPUSA thing with me where, I watched the Trump speech and I watched the DeSantis speech, and DeSantis was talking about mandates. He was talking about what the kids were going through. He was like really talking about issues that really mattered at the time. And Trump was doing like 30-minute monologues about flying planes. And, it was like a big like clown show. It was funny. Trump's interesting, but it's all about him and his little world that everybody wants to live in. And it didn't actually connect with me or the situation going on. I want to talk about the NFTs real quick. Trump dropped some new NFTs on Instagram, and I think Bobby made really the best point where I don't care if the guy sells NFTs. I mean, it's a little goofy, but like I think it's kind of funny. But the problem is he's back on Instagram, he's back on Twitter, he's back on Facebook, right? He could use those platforms. He's got one of the biggest audiences in the world. Anything he says the first tweet or the first Instagram or the first Facebook, it's going to be the biggest story in the world, especially if he waits. He could say the realest thing, tell us the realest truth, something that's going to resonate with the whole world. But instead, after a couple of years of being banned, he logs into Instagram to sell pictures of him looking like a gold idol, photoshopped in a playing card. You know what I'm saying? Him hugging the world with like holding the Liberty Bell. And it's just like corny. It's not the fact that he just sells NFTs. It's the fact that that's what he cares about more than actually like using his platform to spread at least a few messages before he does that. It's just goofy.
Right, exactly. And I'm not, and again, it's like the making money or the generating money for the campaign in the interest of the people, which is, I think, why all of us want to support him. It's like if he sold just a photo of himself, his presidential picture, and was like, this is a $20 donation to the campaign, I actually would have been more okay with that. But the fact that it was so self-serving and wasn't even campaign driven, it's just a miss. It's a communications miss, and it's a marketing miss for a person that is like objectively a marketing genius, or at least has exhibited that in the past.
And I posted about it. I saw other people post about it. And I want to go over two different comments because this is kind of playing into the difference that I see from like 2017 till now. Some of the comments were saying, dude, you don't understand. Trump got hacked. You're stupid. Like, lay off him. He just got hacked. So you got supporters of the guy that want to believe that post was so cringe that Trump just got hacked, which is hilarious for two reasons. One, he didn't get hacked. Two, what type of hacker is going to sell your own products? That's the best hacker ever. It's like they hack your account and they just sell your stuff. It's like, thank you for sparing me a more embarrassing situation. So it's like they're so into like, okay, you don't like what he posted, but it's a hacker, right? And then you had some people, I almost thought this was a joke, and it's sad because it was one of the top comments on my Facebook page, but there's pathological liars out there telling people the reason he dropped NFTs was to like pass a secret code. Everything's a code because it's the Liberty Bell, and you don't understand it, guys. Like he's giving you secret messages. What's the message? I could look at anything. White piece of paper, half the country's white. He's trying to give a message to white people. He's telling you don't hate yourself. Like there's always the word, the Liberty Bell. Oh, he's saving the world through. Like this is how sad the base has become. Is like the biggest supporters are now saying either one, he got hacked, or it's a secret code that only they can understand on a message board, while they brainwash a bunch of MAGA moms into mental illness.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, I think it feeds into the desire to not have to do the hard work of realigning your support behind a person that you don't know everything about yet, that hasn't proven themselves in ways that affect you every day. I think that people are so convinced that they hitched their wagon to Donnie. They were so in support of Donnie, like all of us were. And now it's like, well, if you're going to shift your support now to a DeSantis, well, first of all, you have to deal with all the people that are going to give you a hard time. And then secondly, you have to do the hard work of figuring out, do you think DeSantis is really going to do what you want to do? So it's so much easier to just stick with what you had and demonize anybody that dares say anything different than to do the hard work of figuring out why you would actually make your way over to believing that anybody else, DeSantis or otherwise, would have a better chance of winning, which is the only thing really that I think actually matters at the end of all this. Will we win the general election? I don't care about any question but that. And I wish that more people would keep that in focus.
We're going to talk about the Dominion story because it kind of ties in a second. But first, I want to say, like, you know, I've said this before, but with DeSantis, all of a sudden people care about donor money. I talked before DeSantis even ran, when everybody loved DeSantis and I had criticisms of DeSantis. I was trying to explain to people, I found, and I didn't find this myself. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said it. I checked Open Secrets, which shows campaign donations. I really thought, I believed Donald Trump. I didn't think he was lying. I thought he was so rich, he wasn't taking anyone else's money. I believed that, just like everybody that gets mad at me believes it. I thought that for 4 years. And then once I got the evidence that RFK Jr. said he almost hired me, but then he took $1 million from Pfizer and closed the door on me and hired a pharmacy lobbyist, I fact checked it, not with Google or with like New York Times. Like, I looked into this stuff and it was true. Trump actually took the donor that he said was going to turn Marco Rubio into a perfect little puppet, took over $100 million and gave his wife a Presidential Medal of Freedom. He took money from Pfizer. He took money from mega corporations. And he that was like one huge appeal to him. So I was like, okay, you know, I was trying to talk about lobbying money around Donnie for years and no one wants to talk about it. Now that DeSantis comes up, everyone cares about Karl Rove, who helped work on the Trump campaign. Everybody cares about Paul Ryan, who Trump complimented as he was leaving and said nobody could question his legacy. Now all of a sudden people care about this. So as a voter myself, I see pros and cons to Don and Ron, but the best thing, in my opinion, about Ron DeSantis is the fact that people don't like him that much enough to kind of criticize him and point out the stuff that he's doing with the donors because it's valid. The difference is Trump's doing it and DeSantis is doing it. Mm-hmm. Trump just brainwashes people into thinking only DeSantis is doing it. They actually believe him when they tell him to. Like, they didn't think about DeSantis at all critically until Trump told them to. I've been thinking about the guy critically for 4 years now. This is not new to me. Like, Trump tells me what to think. He tells everyone to think that, and it's actually beneficial to have somebody that people want to hold the donors accountable, because if you have Trump and DeSantis and they're both taking money and they're both selling out and everybody cares that DeSantis does it but no one cares Trump, he's just going to waltz right back in, do his little show, and you're going to have millions of people brainwashed on forums saying, oh, the reason he hired pharmacy lobbyists and sell vaccines is a secret code in the Liberty Bell. Like, you need to see a therapist. You're schizophrenic at this point. You know, like, at least if DeSantis did that, they'd be like, DeSantis is corrupt. And it's like, yeah, you know, like, thank you for noticing. Trump has brainwashed people into mental illness and they become like schizophrenics. It's really creepy.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that you're absolutely right. And I've heard you say it multiple times where you're like, well, nobody, it's important to criticize both of them. We should have been looking into all these things to begin with. And when I look at the actual criticisms of DeSantis, I saw a commercial the other day that was like, he eats pudding with his fingers. Do you want pudding fingers in the thing? And I was like, yo, I like you guys are completely clueless. But again, here's the other thing. So much of this game is marketing and branding. It's just the game. Most people don't pay attention to this, don't want to pay attention to this. Marketing, branding, and clear, direct messaging will win the election, in my opinion, even more than the policies in a lot of ways. So it's like, I'm going to look at the person that's got the best marketing and branding. And I just think that if it's miss after miss after miss, accompanied with all the other bad things that both of them are doing, we just have to pick the better and more likely marketing message that's going to bring the 10% of people in the middle over to maybe voting in a party that they usually wouldn't.
And then hold those politicians that we voted for accountable.
Yes.
I think at this point, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but I think Republicans have been tricked into like losing and playing the victim. Like, they never want to take accountability. Like, nothing in 2020, the Republicans and Trump, they did nothing wrong. They're the victim of 2020, right? Yeah. Everything was the left, even though the right wing dug their own grave with all their signatures and ruined the election. They helped ruin the election with the Democrats by signing the CARES Act, extending the lockdown. But wait, no, because that guy who was in on it said it's become a victim movement. But, you know, for some comedic interlude before we get into the Dominion story, I asked people on Twitter, and I got to read some of these answers. They're so funny. I asked people, if there was a conservative theme park, what would the rides be? Because if Disney leaves, let's build a conservative theme park. And here's some of the funniest answers, all right? What would the rides be at a conservative theme park? Aaron McIntyre, he said, Fox News Freefall. Freefall ride that always sounds like a good idea, but ends up being incredibly disappointed and leaves you wondering why you wasted your time. He says CPAC Carousel. Just goes around and around, looks really colorful, but there's no point. He said GOP axe throwing attraction. You pay money to have Mitch McConnell throw an axe into your back. All right. I got more. Squirrel Bear said, as ironic as it sounds, they would have a trans kids story hour to show how disgusting it is while spreading the very thing they pretend to hate. Adam Brinson said, the Trump train, 3/4 of the ride is going up. The last quarter of the ride is a vertical drop into pharmaceutical nightmare like Disney's Small World. Dancing nurses, masked crazies, and some sort of burning cars for effect. Dude, that's so funny. Adam, you're a legend. He's a great artist, by the way. Chrissy Mayer said, no vegetarian options in the whole park, based and meat pilled. High Vibes said, how about a QAnon ride where nothing ever happens? HQ said, an actual girl and boy bathroom enforced. Orson Squirrel said, I already have a conservative theme park, and posted a beautiful picture of like somewhere nice. Art Sells said, the new and improved fortune teller, a digital disembodied entity which will predict exact future just using 3 personal finance data points. It's a little creepy. Brian Urich said the gift shop would be called ATF, where you could purchase alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Dude, go if you want to for a good time, go to my Twitter and find that tweet where, dude, everybody's making really funny things. All the answers are really, really funny. Well, not all of them, but most of them.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, dude, it's a good time. All right, now to maybe not so much of a good time. Sorry, guys, got to ruin the show. Back to news. Fox News apparently settled a Dominion lawsuit for $787.5 million. They have to pay Dominion, Fox News, $787.5 million. I'll read the statement real quick, and I want to get your reaction before I say mine. In a statement addressing the settlement, Fox News acknowledged the falsehoods aired by the network without going much further to take accountability. I think this is The Guardian saying that, but this is Fox's official statement reads, we are pleased to have reached a settlement of our dispute with Dominion voting systems. We acknowledge the court rulings find certain claims about Dominion to be false. This settlement reflects Fox's continued commitment to the highest journalistic standards. We are hopeful that our decision to resolve this dispute with Dominion amicably, instead of the acrimony of a divisive trial, allows the country to move forward from these issues. So, what do you think?
I think it's definitely not a good look, and again, another L in a long string of very, very public L's. And it's kind of interesting how all of the things that our side, whatever you want to call it, kind of says is going to happen, the opposite ends up happening to us. And the thing that kind of frustrates me so much about the election, even though I feel like it's such a in the past topic at this point, is that, you know, Donnie was talking about those machines well before he got into office, and all of these other communication opportunities to talk about that throughout the term, and Section 230 throughout the term, and all of these other things. None of these things came to fruition. It's like when he had the power and the ears of the world, these very important things, arguably kind of like the only important things, were not secured. So it's like, I don't know. And like the wall didn't get finished. I understand there's other cooks in the kitchen. I'm not trying to Monday morning quarterback, but it's like, if this thing is such a threat to everything, the ability to communicate and the ability for the elections to be legitimate, what else is there? What else really matters but that? And to think that in a 4-year span of time that those things weren't addressed, it's like we kind of reap what we sow, I guess.
Yeah. Before I talk about the Dominion stuff, just the 2020 election, the only person, ironically, I don't know if this is irony, but just surprisingly, which is now I'm being sarcastic because it's not that surprising. I don't know. I was trying to find an adjective. I couldn't find one, over 2, but Thomas Massey has basically said the only other, he said what I've been saying, and he's the only other person. He was like, listen, if you want to talk about the 2020 election, I'm down because I agree with you on a lot of things, but the Republican Party and Trump are not the victim of 2020 election like they claim to be, because Thomas Massey knows as a congressman, he said, look at the CARES Act and look how much money they gave to Democrat states. The Republicans funded the Democrats to lock down their state until November. In order to do all these lockdowns, it's very expensive. Not all of it was on a state level. A lot of it was federal level, and the money that they got to lock down, the whole reason they were able to do it is because Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump signed off on the CARES Act and gave them the money and resources to do so. In many ways, all of these pandemic stuff that we complained about, the Republicans and the Democrats signed that with the pen. So it's like, oh, why are hospitals getting this much money if it's a COVID case? All the corruption surrounding the testing and this and that. Well, it was all signed off by both parties, the uniparty. So this is my only thing. Let's talk about the 2020 election, but let's also take some accountability where this is Trump and the Republicans, in my opinion. They just run around with the chicken like their head cut off, and then they let people like Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell run the show, who, I was optimistic. It's like they're lawyers. They at first seemed like they were nice, and I'm like, maybe they have something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. To be honest, I don't fully trust like machines, like I just don't.
Right.
So I've always been skeptical anyway, but if you say something, they had chances in court to prove it, and they had discovery, etc. And looks like one way or another, Fox fell short.
Yeah, and Kamala Harris, I mean, there's videos of Kamala Harris and other Democrats talking about how these machines were hackable a really, really long time ago. And there could have been a nationwide initiative to focus on this specific issue among so many others. But at the end of the 4 years, there's nothing done with 230. Now that there's Republicans, they're worried about drag shows, which I'm not happy with either. But it's like, can we figure out how to maybe prioritize our time a little bit? Why is Section 230 still not being talked about? Why are the protesters that are locked up in DC, why are they still not being talked about? There's all these other things that are not being prioritized, and that's why we just keep taking L's. You've said it before. It's like we're always reactive. There's no narrative setting. It's always reactive. And it's a loss because you're always chasing the next story. And whenever that starts to fizzle, they can just drop the next one and you have to chase it.
Right. And some people were asking when I post the Trump NFT, I just wanted to see people's opinions. They're like, dude, you hate Trump more than Biden, or you criticize him more than Biden. Listen, Biden's a clown. I would never vote for him. It's a 0% chance of me ever writing that guy's name down. He's a disgrace. He's a liar. He's not even worth really listening to. He's a puppet. He's a pawn. With that being said, I have way more nice things to say about Trump, but I'm a registered Republican, and I don't think the truth is coming through the Democratic Party anymore unless it's RFK with vaccines. That's about all you're going to get. With that being said, I feel like 99% of the Republican Party at this point is controlled opposition, because everything they claim to want to do, they don't want to do. Like, for example, we're going to talk about drag story hour and them sexualizing the kids all the time, right? Okay, I'm not mad at that because parents are really upset about that. But when someone actually does something like DeSantis challenging a mega corporation who's pushing that on kids, all of a sudden the leader of the Republican Party and Chris Christie are crying about it. So how much do you really want to fight trans kid stuff when someone actually takes an action against a big corporation doing it and you cry and say, just take the money? That's who you are. How much do you really care about it when Anheuser-Busch finally has a boycott and we're sending a message not just to them, but to every corporation who pushes this stuff of, do you want to be the next Anheuser-Busch? And Don Jr. comes on his show and tells everyone to stop because they realize he got donor money. How interested are you really in the election when Ron DeSantis flips a liberal city for the first time, in my opinion, in modern history? I've never seen a big city flip from Democrat to Republican. And you have Mike Lindell with his pillow-filled mustache going saying, oh, maybe DeSantis cheated in Miami. You don't really believe that, Lindell, because if DeSantis wasn't running against Trump, you never would have said that. You would have been on his nuts. The only reason Lindell says that is because Trump hates him and he's a Trump guy. So now he's got to try to justify how he won. He cleans up the voter rolls and does a fair election where we actually win, and then you cry about it. How much did they, and someone said blah, blah, blah. Run on the carousel then. Run around people talking about trans kids all the time, promoting trans kids, throwing it all over their Twitter feed, doing what they claim to hate, putting it in your face, putting it in your kid's face if you watch them on Twitter, and then claiming they're trying to fight it. And then when someone does it on a corporate level, they then say, don't do it, leave Disney there. Run circles around Anheuser-Busch, say, we want to protest. And then when Don, so all the things they claim they want to do, they always get mad when someone actually does it, which makes me think that most of the party is just controlled opposition. Flail the hands, play the victim, raise a bunch of money, sell t-shirts with you getting arrested on it while you're whining and dining with all my influencer friends. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Yeah, no, it is. And one of the things that you've pointed out, which I think is so funny, is how do you explain being tight with Lindsey Graham? How do people look at that and say that this is okay? If you share a stage with Lindsey Graham and then Lindsey Graham is like, send the money to Ukraine, we have to send all the money to Ukraine. It's like, but they're cool. I don't understand. So if he's saying we have to not go to Ukraine, but then he has Lindsey Graham saying that he does, and they're aligning and he's putting them on stages and they're bulldog supporting each other. Why? How do people not focus on that? Instead, they're like putting fingers down, like DeSantis is putting with fingers. It's like, all right, guys, I guess we're just not going to look at the things that are actually occurring.
If people don't get it by now, it's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 1,000 times, you're a Republican and a Democrat voter at this point. Because, you know, when he went hard at Thomas Massie, right? I'm not even joking, probably the only congressman I actually like. There's some other ones I like. I've met Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're nice. They like me, whatever. But I really like Thomas Massie. No offense. I like them better. But they're cool too. With that being said, you know, he stood up and said, like, this is going to be the biggest mistake in modern history. This is socialism. This is communism. This is the cheese in the trap, which it absolutely was. And Trump got mad that Thomas Massie was challenging him and tried to kick him out of the Republican Party. Then Trump goes on with Tucker Carlson, and Tucker talks about Newsom, and he goes, oh, he's ruining Florida. He's like, but I'll never hit him because he's really nice to me. So you're nicer to Gavin Newsom and Lindsey Graham than you are to Thomas Massie because they're nice to you. This is who Trump is. He ran around the country for 2 years selling vaccines. You know, when military were being forced vaccinated under the Biden mandate, I'm not blaming Trump for the mandate. It's the Biden mandate. But DeSantis was speaking about the military members being forced vaccinated, just like DeSantis speaks about Yokovich. Trump doesn't give a crap about anybody. He ran around Newsmax, Fox News for that whole year saying, if I was president, they would have got the vaccine. There wouldn't have needed to be a mandate because everybody would have got the shots. It would have been 1 million a day. They were rocking. This is what he said. He doesn't give a crap about you or anyone, but these people still keep running back to him with Stockholm Syndrome. It's so obvious who Trump is. I'm not saying he's worse than Gavin Newsom. I'm not saying you can't vote for him if you want to. It's a fake democracy or whatever, or republic, whatever they pretend it is. But if you don't see who this guy really is and who he's really aligned with, the joke's on you. So it's like, I mean, it couldn't possibly be more obvious at this point, and people just don't care. So what can you really do?
Yeah, exactly. And they're not holding him to account, and they're just going to end up getting exactly the same thing that happened the first time. And you made a good point where it's like, while all of this stuff happened, this was like the most socialist, lockdownist, like most dystopian time that we ever had. And even though it wasn't entirely his fault, that did happen. And all of these individual examples, like how he treated Kemp from Georgia, and how DeSantis is specifically and objectively coming out and talking about the real things that really matter to people. And he's talking about NFTs and how he's getting persecuted, which I agree is important, but it's not necessarily, I think, the message that gets out to people that anything is going to change for them, which is really what we're trying to elect, isn't it?
Well, whether people want to see it or not, Trump thrives in the victim role, and it's the opposite of the message that conservatives preach, because conservatives tell people and black people, like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, stop complaining. And it's really actually good advice. I agree with it. Like Thomas Sowell, you know what I'm saying? Larry Elder, like, don't play the victim. But when Trump's not playing the victim, you have to understand, like, people were starting to see through it. He was really neck and neck with DeSantis, and people were like, his rhetoric's cringe. DeSantis has been speaking to me more. And what put Trump up in the polls? The new victim narrative. He got a lot of fundraising now. And I met multiple people in person. They couldn't really tell me why they wanted to vote for Trump. Like, as far as like why they thought he was so much better, they just said, well, if Alvin Bragg's going after him, it must mean he's good. He's the victim. So I want to give him a chance to fight the left, the new false paradigm. When he's on Tucker Carlson saying he gets along better with Gavin Newsom than Thomas Massie, he won't hit Newsom, but he'll hit Massie. Like, it's so obvious, but people don't see it. So I think that, I think that he thrives in the victim role. And I think his campaign will probably look at ways, like, once this Alvin Bragg narrative dies down, he'll have to find a new way to play the victim. Because if he ever stops being the victim, then people will see through it. It's like, I'm the victim of the election, even though I signed all the paperwork and got along with all the Democrats to make this happen. I'm the victim of the thing that I funded, And I just want to say something real quick too, because this is how you know that a lot of people that are in that lane don't care about capitalism or free market or really anything. Outside of the mandates, everybody has to understand, look at Operation Warp Speed. It was an I keep saying 16, but it was actually $18 billion vaccine socialist program where nobody wanted this thing like, oh, I'm going to pay for this. The government gave 6 or 7 or however many vaccine companies money. Straight socialism. Then it got even more socialist than them just giving them socialist money. Trump, before Biden even got there, bought hundreds of millions of Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson doses. So it's double socialism. Socialism with the funding, socialism with the buying. It was never free for an ice cream and French fries. It was all government socialism. So outside of the mandates, right, regardless of what you think, I ask most people who are still on Trump's nuts, and I say, you know, Operation Warp Speed was a socialist scam. And they say to me, they start making excuses for me. So now what I'm telling people is, you're not a free market capitalist. You're a Trump socialist. You like socialism when Trump does it, but you disagree if another Republican did it. You disagree with socialism if the left does it, but if the right does it, you defend it. So you're not a free market capitalist, and you're not a principled conservative. You're a Trump communist. You're a Trump socialist. You could put a MAGA hat on Karl Marx, and you'd get on your knees and buy an NFT over it. That, in 2 minutes, I just exposed every single person. I'm not saying you have to hate them. I'm not saying you have to never like them again, but just admit that that's socialist. You can't do that, your brain's fried. There's no point of even being a political activist. You might as well just be a trad wife or a trad husband and go live on a farm somewhere, because those people are doing a lot more conservative stuff than the Republican base is, you know, trying to stop an Anheuser-Busch protest with Caitlyn Jenner. So I'm tired of it.
Exactly. And then tax dollars got used not only to buy it, to invest in the financing of it, but then got invested to market it. And then there's no return back to the people. It's like they could have negotiated a percentage of those sales to go back to potential injuries or to potential issues or literally any other number of things. But he always talks about how good all of the deals are. That seems like a pretty raw deal to me. And then these companies that have done so many bad things over the course of history in other departments now are getting the largest contracts that ever existed in the history of time, and then getting promoted by the president and then the next president on TV every day to this day using your tax dollars. And we always get the short end of the stick. To me, that's not a very good deal. And if this guy is always playing like 800 dimensional upside down chess, then why was he not able to see the machines? Why was he not able to see Section 230? Why were all these things in the blinders? How do you give him a pass for that and just say, just because he's being persecuted, that suddenly it's okay now, when you have another candidate which is objectively doing good things that you can't say the same things about, and then you just hate him because he's not your guy.
We all knew I'm just going to do a quick metaphor. We all knew Big Pharma was going to hit us with a hammer, right? If they ever got a hammer. The Republicans made the hammer. They welded the hammer. They funded the hammer. They gave them the hammer for free. They did a socialist scheme to put it in their hands. They made it stronger. And then they jump to the side when Big Pharma hits us with the hammer and say, oh, I mean, we built the hammer, funded the hammer, did all the hammer with socialism, gave them the hammer, told them how to hit you, and then they hit you, and we didn't even know. It's like, you know, they even taught them how to hit us, because through the pharmacy lobbyists that Trump hired for HHS, the emergency was declared and they're protected under the PrEP Act. So then you have the number one theory now is that he secretly did all that to save us. This is how crazy people have gotten. And I want to take it back real quick just to the Dominion lawsuit. You know, I don't really know exactly what was said or what they got sued for. Maybe it was things that other people said. And there's a few things that are interesting. One, are you responsible for what people say on your platform? Like if you're Fox News, are you allowed to have somebody on with an opinion, even if it's wrong, you know, just on a free speech thing? And also, I don't know what exactly Fox said. Like, are they being blamed for their, you know, like having Sidney Powell on? Or was it something that Fox hosts were saying that when they went to court that they couldn't proof? I don't know which one it is.
The other thing too is like they went to court, and I would bet most of the people that watched all of those proceedings, it's like, did you watch? Was the evidence so convincing? Was it indestructible evidence? Why did every single one of them lose? I understand that, you know, there may have been some trickery involved in there, but I would say that, again, coming back to the marketing, don't we think that a better strategy would be, hey, they cheated in the sense that there was marketing through every single major news outlet, that they were artificially raising the opinions of people on social, that it was the social contagion outside of physically changing these ballots that actually did probably more negative than even whatever potential dark activities there were with this company. And then as a result, at the end of it all, that company that supposedly did this bad thing that sold out the most prosperous nation in the history of time, they just made $700 million.
Right.
It's like they just got stacks. So I don't know.
And I understand sometimes people get a raw deal, but it's like, okay, you're fighting them by giving them $700 million. You lead your people to a Capitol where some people think you're going to arrest the pedophiles, and instead you just lead them to a Fed trap and completely disappear in your car. Like, it's like a controlled demolition of the Republican Party on every sense of the word. And as bad and corrupt as Fox News is, they still host some of the only valid opinions on television. And without them, it's a total monopoly. So there is a space for Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham. I named those two for a reason. I think Hannity's a phony, but you understand, like, so it's like a controlled demolition of everything Republican. And like you said, you know, with the election, I really think the fact that they, like in California and other states, they sent a ballot to every single house. This is not good. You know what I'm saying? I don't care what the Democrat media says. The way to have the safest, most secure election would be identification, which is not in California and many Democrat states. One ballot, traceable. I'm even for, you know, they got cameras everywhere. Put a camera in the voting thing. Make sure that person is who it was, and you could check on it and audit it. So, you know, I think them using the COVID emergency to send mass mail-in ballots everywhere all the time was the big scheme. And this is the problem with being sloppy. If you're on it, you got to pinpoint exactly what it was and be accurate. But if you just run around wailing your hands saying 20 things and 15 of them are right and 5 of them are wrong, you're going to get got, you know? So it's like people want to believe they're biased because they want the results that they want. But, you know, just because I want to beat the left doesn't mean I could say whatever I want and be right about like 80% of it. It's going to get, you know, it's going to get you in trouble, I think, at a certain point.
Yeah, and the other thing too, to not continue always looking in the rear view, which I know a lot of people have their opinions about it. It's like, can we maybe just for a minute, all of us collectively focus on what happens forward? Only 60% of eligible voters in the United States even vote. 40% of them don't even participate. We may not even be able to convince them to participate. That 60% is split almost 40, probably 40 to 40 or 45, 45. There's a 10% in the middle that will win or lose the election. None of these elections are blowouts, one side or the other. So if you can maybe for a second just believe that it was fair, let's say, it's like, if that other 5% or other 10% had come over, that's it. That's a win. So do you believe that the marketing strategy, forget Donnie specifically, forget the man, forget the personality, forget the past, talk about the marketing strategy and the avatar attached to that marketing strategy presently. Do you think that his marketing strategy today, his branding, his messaging, his consistency, do you think that that is better objectively than the one from DeSantis who has not even announced? I just think that this branding and marketing, this messaging is more direct. This avatar that's associated with this messaging seems to be more direct, on point, and in the pulse of the people. Forget about the past and the character. Forget about the personality and liking him. Just looking forward, to me, the only thing that matters is that marketing message and branding going forward. That's the only thing I care about, is winning, because none of this stuff is going to matter unless we win.
Let's take 2016, because I know Trump says like it was a blowout. It was a blowout. It was an amazing win against Hillary Clinton, no doubt. I'm super excited that it happened, but the blowout win was really like 10,000 votes in a few states. So there's a very small margin everywhere, right? That being said, this is the number one. I don't know which way they did what, but I'll say this is the number one thing that no one talks about that absolutely affected the election. So most of the time you don't have as many people voting because not a lot of people care. Coachella's going on, this is going on, that's going on. Nobody really gives a crap unless you're a political person. But here's the lockdown, right? Thanks to the funding of the Democrats and the funding of the Republicans, they were allowed to, Democrat or Republican, for 2 months or 8 months, lock the entire country down. There's no events. You can't even leave the country. You got to understand, I had friends that probably voted that would have been in France on a DJ tour, and now they're in America probably voting for Biden because they got duped or whatever. So you got everybody home. You can't go to a gym. You can't go to a spa. Most people still can't even go to work. And now you have every application run by Democrats saying, do you want to register? 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 Every app, every single thing, throwing it in your face, throwing it in your face. So now they're building all these registrations. Then there's the whole George Floyd situation where everyone's all amped up and now they have an angle. They don't know anything, but it's like, well, there's racism and now I got to vote for the guy who's going to fight the racist guy. And you have all of this stuff. This is how they won, in my opinion. Even if there were ballots and stuff, I'm not saying that didn't happen because I don't think it's fair to just throw ballots all over the country like that. But as far as like, I'm an analytics guy, I guarantee they could have got like tens of millions of votes that way, because hundreds of millions of people who would have been doing their thing are stuck home, nowhere to go, being fed propaganda every day, being fed to vote, had their ballot mailed to their place. They couldn't even ignore it. This garnered so many votes. And I'm sorry, but the Republicans are not the victim of this. Like you said, we got to stop playing. Like if we lost or we got cheated, we have to stop it from happening again. This is the problem with Donnie and Mike Lindell. They wail their hands, but they have no real solution. So it's like you're discouraging people from voting. You're not addressing what I just said. Whether you think it was more rigged than that or not is a tangible fact that they could have got tens of millions of votes through all of that manipulation that they did and increased their votes. And nobody in the Republican Party cares, because it's not a scene that they could flail their arms. So now people don't want to vote. They're discouraged of voting. And all of their heroes telling them that it's not fair are doing nothing to fix it. And then you have a state that actually fixes it, improves results, and you got these same people fighting them as if they cheated. It's like, it's insane. And then they're telling people that we would win all 50 states if it were fair. We might win more, but we're not winning all 50 states. Go to Los Angeles, go to some of these cities. I live in a conservative area. There's a lot of liberals. The truth is, it's close to 50-50 right now. Maybe it's 60-40, 55-45, but you have people that are so brainwashed, they don't want to vote, whatever. You don't have to. It doesn't matter, but it kind of does. But anyway, whatever. But then they think that there's like no opposition. It's like, oh, liberals are taking over everywhere, except they don't exist, because I don't want to admit that they do exist, and I got to convince some of them to vote for me. It's like the dumbest strategy I've ever seen in my life. The GOP and Trump are just controlled demolitioning this entire movement. Like, and that's what I see, at least.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of times stuck living in the past instead of focusing on how to win in the future. And no, you're absolutely right about that, because again, they had a very consistent, clear, and concise and direct marketing effort where they lifted up each other, they lifted up their own, they pumped each other on social media, they pumped all these media outlets, and they focused on only the things that matter. And all of the fanfare and all the hoorah didn't really matter, because I would wager that 10% of people that I'm talking about, the ones that need to be persuaded in order to win, they can be convinced in 2 paragraphs. You say, well, this guy hates this. He doesn't like this. He doesn't like this. He doesn't like this. Don't you want to choose the other guy? Yes. Okay. That two paragraph description is something that is very fragmented and unclear from the right. And that grassroots, on the ground, everyday person stuff where people should be following it because it's logical and reasonable, they don't even talk about. To me, the biggest miss of all the misses right now that's happening is that there are 2 places where you objectively will win almost every single discussion versus anyone that votes on the left, which is what? Which is economic matters and foreign affairs. All of our foreign affairs are objectively worse now than they were 4 years ago. Take Donnie out of the equation. They just are. Better foreign policy, 100%. Less interventionism, let's say. Even the peace people can see that way. The other one is economic matters and matters of money and finance, something that literally affects every single person ever. Yet they lean into the arguments and they lean into the things that they will lose on or can lose on with an emotional argument, where you will never lose an economic or financial argument. You will never lose a foreign policy or an international war argument. Those are the 2 things that we should hear only. But instead, we waste all of our time messing around in these places where we'll never convince them to come over, instead of focusing on the things that affect absolutely every single person every single day.
And I think that with the trans kid stuff and like the What is a Woman, like I really think What is a Woman documentary, the way Matt Walsh did it, even though in his Twitter he's like extreme, he was not in that documentary. And I know people that vote Democrat that actually like that because they're over 40, and it's weird. You know, it's weird that they can't tell the difference between a man and a woman to these people. So that's even a winnable issue. But it's then about the messaging where, you know, I feel like there are a lot of parents that don't like it. But the thing is, you got to be effective, be like, I'm going to solve it, but I'm not going to act like a psycho while I'm doing it so you actually like me. I got a lot of people that follow me that are left-wing. I'm more conservative than Trump on almost every topic, but I just don't act annoying, so people don't even know, or if I talk to them reasonably, they're like, no, I get that. I actually agree with you. So it's like, you know, this idea that like flailing your arms, acting nuts about the thing, while then not actually doing anything about it, it's the worst of both worlds. And I want to say this real quick. When it comes to the primary, this is really annoying me because I was hoping, I didn't know DeSantis was going to run, but I was praying that Rand Paul ran. Even if Rand Paul lost, I felt like Trump Trump needs competition because he's just gotten way too lazy, way worse, way more cringe. And I wanted to see somebody call him out for the pharma stuff and do this. So when DeSantis ran, it's like, oh, this is great. This is going to be competition. And now you see DeSantis doing more stuff and everyone's like, oh, he's just doing all that because he wants to win. And it's like, well, that's a good thing if competition is making him do better things. Because to me, competition is just making Trump more cringe, more fake, lying more, accusing people of what it's like Trump's not taking this competition like, yo, I'm going to just start crushing to really prove I'm better. He's like, let me try to blackmail him and drag him down and do stupid pudding ads to show everybody how cool I am and play the victim about something that's been going around for 6 years. It's like, I want competition. So I don't understand the people that are like, oh, let him get out of the way. Yeah, let him get out of the way so he runs against Nikki Haley and Tim Scott and makes them look like idiots, and there's no sort of, throw Rand Paul in the race. I want Rand Paul on there, calling both of them out, and they all should be competing to show off who could be the best leader, but that's not the current dynamic that I see.
Well, yeah, and I saw whenever I post about Donnie, it's like it gets vicious, even with people that agree with me 99% of the time. They're like, he deserves to finish what he started. And I'm like, I don't know that deserves is necessarily the right word that we should be focusing on here. Because again, what is the president? The servant of the people, the defender of the Constitution. They're not separating the personality of the man from the task at hand. It's not about what he deserves. It's about what will embody and push forward the things that matter the most to the most American citizens. Because whether you like it or not, a person that maybe disagrees with you on a couple of core issues, they might be able to vote for you if they understand that these things are of a higher priority. When you're standing at the ballot box, is your average person that might feel really, really emotional about, let's say, abortion, for example, or gun control. Are they going to sit there and what are they going to be thinking about? They're going to be like, well, I really don't have any money. I want my kid to go to a good school. I really don't want anybody to get blown up. I think we're squandering all this money overseas. And they might be like, you know what? I don't know that they're going to be able to just make abortion illegal all the way. I don't know that they're going to be able to just take all the guns away. It is the Second Amendment. This guy is talking about things that really affect me every day, the money that it cost me to even get here. And if we were to just stick to that consistent message and not play around in their emotional playground where we always take L's, that's the message that wins. So it's like, this is a marketing and branding election, and people are confusing the personality of the character with the objective task at hand. The only objective is to win. And if you're not focusing on that and you're worrying about what he deserves, you're not understanding what we're fighting for and what we're really talking about.
I love that you talk about the messaging and branding, because this is something I've been kind of pushing recently. It's like, people don't have to like you. And people don't have to want to work with you. They don't have to want to vote for you. This is all earned. So you got to understand when it comes to branding, I'm conservative and libertarian. I would say I'm a hybrid. I think libertarians are right on taxes. Conservatives are right on certain values, in my opinion. So I go between those, but that's all right leaning. Like, the left really can't do much for me at this point. They're too far gone. Like, RFK is the only one that's interesting because he talks about vaccines. That's the only person. And Jimmy Dore is kind of funny and honest sometimes about war. Besides that, they can't do anything for me. So this is bad marketing. If 95% of conservative influencers annoy me, I agree with what they're saying, and I don't even like them. So if I don't even like them, and I'm a registered Republican who's going to vote Republican, who believes in the values they're claiming, what do you think people in the middle, if I don't even like them, what do you think they're thinking of these people? They're not, it's very cringe, a lot of these people, and they're serving their base. That's all they're doing. They're hyping up their base, selling as much Trump merch as they can. Everyone's got to sell merch. I get it. I'm not knocking. I'm just saying they're not interested in getting the independent. They're not interested in spreading that message. You get what I had a conversation with someone recently that's liberal, pro-abortion, LGBT, all that stuff. I think eventually if I hung out with them enough, I could convince them. Maybe not. But, it's like I know how it would be done, and it would not be done the way that, and eventually it's like, they're driven so far to the left sometimes because they just see annoying people on the right, and they're like, no, that's definitely not it.
Yes, that's right. And it's like, if the only thing that you had to think of, I was at a music festival the other day, and this airplane flew by with an accident personal injury attorney, and it was like, Morgan and Morgan, call Morgan and Morgan if you get in an accident. And I was thinking to myself, like, why are they doing that? It's not like I'm just sitting on the beach and I'm going to call Morgan and Morgan because I got in an accident. It's that when the time actually comes, that I actually do get in an accident, the one person, I'm going to think of any person that I remember, something that they remember, and I might call them and I might call other people, but it's going to give me a shot. It's a lead generation. It's like if every single time I think of DeSantis, if every single time I think of Donnie, all I think about is them talking about how they're going to worry about my bottom line, how they're going to worry about my household finance so that my kid could have a better school, so I could drive a more reliable car, so I could have a house that's going to have the heat on in the winter. If that was the only thing that was in the forefront of the branding of my mind, I would associate that. There's a person that's going to that's going to have a personal injury case that's going to call Morgan & Morgan and call some other guy and be like, I was at a music festival having the time of my life and they wanted to reach me there. They must be cool. They must like music festivals. Boom, you just got my $1 million case. It's not about the facts. It's not about whether or not they're the best in the world. It's not about the product itself and its quality. It's about how you package and message it and deliver it to the end user. So it's like the only thing that I care about is how are you packaging the messaging, and do I think that messaging will carry through? And people hate when I say this, but it's like, if you can't convince Joe Rogan, not just Joe Rogan the person, what Joe Rogan represents, the middle of the line voter that could theoretically be swayed one way or the other. If you can't convince a Joe Rogan to be like, yep, that makes sense, you lose. You're not going to convince anybody that voted Biden to go and vote for Trump, and you're not going to be able to convince anybody that voted for Trump to go vote for Biden. So it's like the only thing that matters is the 10% of the people in the middle. Maybe your Bill Maher and your Joe Rogans, that if you were to really hammer that economic message, the financing message, and the foreign war message, that they could actually maybe push back on, okay, maybe the abortion is not, maybe the gun, maybe that's not as important right now because we need to focus on these things, which will trickle down to a lot of other great prosperity going forward. That's how you win, in my opinion. But I mean, what do we know? It just seems to me like that's the clear thing that we really are looking at.
Well, everybody likes Trump so much, and he's so used to playing the victim that they don't actually want to have self-accountability and self-awareness. Like, okay, even if you really like him, nothing's your fault. Nothing he does is wrong. Everything he does is right, and he's always the victim, and it's just okay. That sounds like how you lose an election to me. Elon Musk, I don't care what you think about him. He's the most famous person, most rich person in the world, and he's doing things for the Republican Party and doing an even-keeled thing, probably slightly leaning right and helping us way more. And you can't even say one thing nice about him. You just want to bash him, even though he has millions of left-wingers and techies and crypto people on his side. You just want to just say stupid crap about him. Like, I think he voted for me, but he's lying. Like, Trump's an idiot. He's a complete idiot. And people are so brainwashed in his little narrative that they just want to act like everything he does. But then when he loses, he's just a giant victim. It's like it's a controlled demolition of our entire movement. And I'm about to drop a super gem real quick. Outside of politics, what I think, what Bobby thinks, what you think, at the end of the day, you are what you do. You are who you are. And self-accountability and self-awareness is the most important. What you do, the life you build, how you present yourself, what you actually take care of. So if everybody did that, they'd have a different perspective. If every left-winger took care of themselves, they probably wouldn't be left-wing, no offense. If they had all their stuff together, they'd see through the delusion. And the funny part is all the right-wingers that have no self-accountability and no self-awareness and just want to play the victim and act like they're fighting the left all the time, they are the left. They're losing to the left because they're the same type of person as the left. They can't even stand up against socialism if their party does it. They can't even call out the corruption on their own side. So the whole irony of the situation is the right-wingers that are so pissed at the left every day on social media are losing to the left. They've become the left. They're as stubborn as the left, and they allow their politicians to push far left-wing policies, and they don't even realize it. So their actually entire existence at this point, I'm not saying their existence in the world, but their whole activist shtick is a waste. They might as well just find a wife or a husband and go move on a farm because they're not actually doing anything. It's like their whole narrative and activism is totally fake, and they're not helping us at all.
Right, exactly. And if they were to recognize how their voices could bring more people under the tent, they would stay focused on those things all the time. And the point about Elon, it's like do you not want Elon on your side? Because you could have just not said anything about him or been like, good on Elon, or said literally nothing at all about it and just been like, hey, maybe an Elon personality, a person that has a large amount of influence, maybe be a good idea to have this person under the tent. And that's what the left does with characters like a Dylan Mulvaney, for example. They're like, this guy's got 10.8 million followers on TikTok. I'm gonna give him 5 minutes of my time, secure his vote and half of his followers vote. It's like, do you think Joe Biden really thinks that Cardi B is the best influence? But he used her, but he utilized her audience. And it's like, this is a strategic game that is won through branding and marketing, and they objectively won in that respect. And if you look at, like, they have The Rock. The Rock is one of the most influential people on Instagram, was like one of the #1 people. And there's an interview with The Rock and Kamala Harris. How many live stream video interviews did you see with Donnie and some other person like that? Because I didn't see any of that. It was just like, he deserves it. He isn't he such a boss? They're right in the comments. He's such a boss. Yeah, he might be a boss, but that's not what really matters in this game, I think.
And there's two ways to really do it right, in my opinion. If you're going for the marketing thing, it's like you could do that and you could not say anything or say something nice. If you're going for the truth, I'm good with the tough truth. I know it might not be the best marketing tactic sometimes, but if you're going to be super raw and honest, I'll put up with it. But what he's doing about Elon, in my opinion, is super disingenuous, because first he's starting off with saying who he voted for in 2020, which is just like an ego, like he voted for me or Biden. It's like, but then also it's like, listen, there's a lot of things that he's doing. He revealed that the government was working with Twitter.
Right.
He didn't have to do that. So why are you saying Trump's now lying and kind of like framing it like Elon's the one that did it originally at Twitter, like he's the bad guy at Twitter. Compliment him a few times and then criticize what you dislike. Don't just bash him where it's like, oh, get out of my way. I don't care about you at all. Donald's just ego. It's like, you're on Fox News. Everyone likes you. All my supporters now like you on Twitter. You're helping them all out. Do you know how many Republicans he's responding to? Benny Johnson, ALX, a lot of these really good meme posters and stuff. Elon's mostly Republican now. I'm not saying you got to like follow him off a cliff, but it's like he's helping your party massively as the richest and most famous person in the world, who has that middle of the road appeal to bring millions of people over to the right wing. And you can't even compliment him 1 or 2 times before you do this stupid freaking post about it, making you look like a dumbass. I'm between two things in my head, and I don't really care who agrees with me. You could feel free to disagree. I either think that Trump is just like a demolition, like he's just wrecking ball everything that we've ever built and just trying to destroy it in front of us, or he's just an incredibly egotistical guy who's almost 80, and just like a lot of people's does anybody's grandpa want to hear your opinion? Nobody's grandpa wants to hear your opinion. I went through Vietnam. Like, what are you going to tell me, young man? I'm 80 years old. He's got that type of energy. So maybe it's just that sort of thing where he's not who he was in 2017, the same way Anderson Silva's not the same fighter he was when he's 35. He lost to Jake Paul. Are we going to lie to ourselves? Oh, yeah, Biden's 80. He's a joke. Trump's way better than him. But it's like when, Tito Ortiz fights Chuck Liddell at 50. They're both a shell of what they once were, but Tito won. He was the better one. Trump's 80 years old, guys, and you're going to act like he's not acting that way. So either it's a purposeful, controlled demolition of the party, or he's just like a delusional guy who's just into himself, like most people's grandpas are. They want to tell old man stories about what they did because they're almost, at the end, and they're not interested in your story. They want to tell you about 1965, and you want to listen. But I love grandpas. It's just maybe not in the White House.
I believe that the latter is definitely, like, the second part of that is probably more accurate, and it's about like the book of his life and what he did and how he had this great comeback. But let me kind of like give a flip of it on how I think marketing and branding changes the opinion. How does Donnie actually beat DeSantis? Here's a message that I think would have actually worked if he was just like, Ron DeSantis is a young man that I brought into the fray by helping him get over the hump. As a result, he's made the state of Florida a really great place to live. He did these 25 things really, really right. He just got reelected in a landslide victory in the state of Florida, and he is going to really crush it, and he's going to be a political superpower for the next 20 years. And there's a high probability that he could be the leader of the free world, and I think that he would do a tremendous job at it. presently, right now, there are 4 years that I have left where I want to give my entire life experience into serving you, the American people, because I didn't get the opportunity to finish out my term. I'm going to do these 8 things. Here's the 5 things that I did wrong. And even though I think that Ron DeSantis is going to be a great person to carry the torch going forward, here's the things that I'm more experienced on. I'm more experienced on foreign policy, something that he doesn't have a lot of information on, that I'm going to teach to him and show him the ropes and support him throughout this process. And if you let Ron finish out his term in Florida and let me carry the torch right now, you will have 12 years of potential prosperity where the world will really see how our message actually works, and we'll be able to effectuate some change. This guy is great, but you need to let me do these 20 things. That beats Ron 100 times out of 100, in my opinion. And what he's doing is the exact opposite of that.
Well, I think instead he went with the route of kind of acting goofy and blackmailing him, and it wasn't working. I mean, honestly, I'm going to reference a Hodge Twins poll, not because I think it's the most important thing, but I do think it shows where a lot of people's heads are at on the right. So they put out a poll 2 months ago when Trump wasn't really doing much and just acting goofy, and DeSantis won the poll quite heavily. After the victim narrative of Alvin Bragg arresting him, where Donald Trump did all the fundraising and he's the victim, Trump won bigger than DeSantis won the last time. So the swing was like a 20-point swing. Trump doesn't even have to do that, because as long as there's a narrative that makes him the victim, he does like a 30 swing poll. But here's what I will say, because I know a lot of people that are supporting him are like, oh my gosh, look at this poll. Here's the thing. Caitlyn Jenner was leading the polls of governor of California. And when it came time for whatever that was, the little primary or recall election, like less than 2 or 3%, like super low amount. So early start, and then other people got in the race. DeSantis, once he actually starts running more ads, once he declares, once they have a debate and we see who's the better debater, these things are going to change. So I think Trump is riding a high right now because of the whole like Alvin Bragg thing. Like literally that's been the greatest thing for him. He was literally neck and neck in the polls, and now he's crushing in the polls. So it's like, how does people not see that? But anyway, as it goes on, he's really going to get tested. And I agree that I don't like his strategy, but here's another idea is I think how he's doing it now, he legitimately can win the primary. But then with the general, I think he's going to be screwed, because also it's just his messaging so weird to me. Like, I'm the type of person, if I'm down 20 points in the fourth quarter, I still believe I could win, and I'm trying to win. So I'm all about, but like, I want to get stuff done where it's like, he says the election's rigged, but he doesn't really do anything to fix it. So now he's got millions of people saying it, but they don't know why, and Fox is getting sued and they can't really prove it. It's just sloppy. It's like, get something done and then tell people, hey, we're going to have to overcome this hump because they don't have voter ID. So we're really going to have to get out there. And the truth is, California not having voter ID doesn't matter because he's not really winning California anyway. It's Wisconsin, which we just lost a Supreme Court judge thing that's going to determine the election. And Trump's laughing about it. He doesn't give a crap about solving these problems. He likes crying the victim about it to fundraise, confuse his base, and then be short voters when it comes time. So it's going to come down to 4 or 5 states. And, I think he can win the primary, though. Honestly, I think what you're saying would be a little more logical, but he just really has to win the primary in order to knock DeSantis down. And then it's, his election to win or lose.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I love that DeSantis says, again, and I'm not disimping for him. It's just good marketing strategy. He's like, listen, while everybody is getting lost in all this, I'm just trying to put points up on the board. And to me, there's 2 different strategies. Like, there's 1 minute left, you're down by 9. Somebody is going to say, I'm just going to shoot threes. And DeSantis, at least in my opinion, with this strategy, it's like, let me get a 2 on the board, let me get a 2 on the board, let me get a 2 on the board, and we still have time. And I just think that overall is what he's been doing, and that's how he approaches his speeches. At that Turning Point conference that we were at, there was these 2 speeches back to back. What DeSantis said in 30 minutes was more chock full of things that mattered to me than what Donnie said in 75 minutes. Right. He's like, here's what happened. Here's what I did to fix it. Here's the results that happened after that. It wasn't about him. It was only about what actually went into effect, why, and then what the result is. And that's it. That to me is the winning message.
I said that too, because like people could think what they want, but I'm going into this ready to call it like I see it. Like if AOC gave an amazing speech, she never would, but I would be like, damn, I don't like her. Like I'm a very fair person.
Yeah.
DeSantis' thing that I always bring up that stuck with me so much is he explained how pragmatic he was. And he said, when I got into office, I didn't want to just talk about stuff. I wanted to basically figure out exactly how to get stuff done within the law, within my governing tactics. So I built an entire team and I structured an entire team, and that entire team, their specific goal was to figure out exactly what I could do, and then I went and did it. This is the exact opposite of how Trump works. He's just winging it. He hires people who hate him. General Milley, he doesn't get done. He cries the victim and flails his arms. Objectively, I just can't stand that behavior. I bought it for a while because I thought there was going to be some sort of like huge finale. I bought into this idea that he had plans to do something cool. I wasn't like full-blown Q or anything, but I'm like, let's give Trump some time. He's funny, he's likable, but it's like the pragmatism of like DeSantis, whether you agree with the policy he pushed or not, that's where his head's at. He's like, yo, I'm figuring out exactly what I could do and do it. And Trump's like, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to yell at Bill Barr for 3 years on True Social when I hired him. If I hired Bill Barr and Bill Barr sucked, it's one truth or one tweet for me. My bad. Next time I'll hire better. Anything that he did is my fault because I put him there. Bill Barr didn't just walk into Washington and put himself as the attorney general. Trump hired him and kept him there for 2 years. It's all a show. Either Trump is the goofiest, most egotistical person I've ever met, or he's just joking around, running you in circles purposely. But there is like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, I want him to be better than DeSantis. I just don't see it because it's like on every level, it's just like, that's the energy of everything he does. And there's never an end to it. That's why the Q stuff is so popular. His #1 support base now literally hallucinates that everything he does is a secret plan, that codes that they don't understand, and that he's secretly rushing vaccines and get like, that's who his crowd is. It's either people like that or people who say, oh, he got hacked. That's so stupid that I assume that someone else posted it. I mean, it's getting really sad out there, folks. It's I don't know.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, and this is why it's important to focus on not the person necessarily, but about what actually executes. I mean, Donnie in his career has had a number of misses and many great hits. But these misses didn't necessarily come because of an individual bad decision that he made, but because of a bad hire and something that slipped through the cracks. Elon said on that interview with Tucker last night, he's like, I took my eye off the ball on OpenAI and now it's privatized, like the complete opposite of its intent. When you're a person like Donnie, over the course of your career, there's a lot of different people that are chirping in your ear. And if you make bad hiring decisions, that's how you get caught up. The Trump Taj Mahal in New Jersey running out of money and a variety of his other businesses that he got sued on, like the steaks, the Trump University. It's not like Donnie was sitting there breaking the law with Trump University. He just had the wrong people in his stable that he didn't have the right eye on that ended up costing him in the long run. And he knew that as long as he hits a couple grand slams every couple of games, that he's going to end up on top in the end. You can't really approach government in the same way because there are so many working pieces and parts where you can't only save face by being at the very top of it and negotiating your way out of a bad deal with the banks because you have all this other clout. Whereas like with DeSantis, it's like he's objectively putting the right people into the right positions. And that hiring is a huge part of what you're actually voting for, is who are they going to hire? And all of these mistakes, like Michael Cohen, the guy went to prison and is here now, his most ardent enemy. And it's like, that was his guy. That was his guy. Like all of these other people who are now bad, that were his guy, including DeSantis. That was his guy 3 months ago, and now he's bad. It's like, you can't just keep making so many mistakes. It represents a pattern to me. And I don't know how going forward, I don't understand what really has changed where suddenly now he knows how to hire the right people. I don't really see where that is getting changed.
Everybody hates Jenna Ellis now. That was like Trump's camp, like a lawyer for the election steal. And it's like also another hire, which is funny, but
right.
Yeah, I think it says a lot. We'll see. I'm interested to see who Rand Paul endorses, because I think it's really interesting that Thomas Massie came out so early, because he's really one of the only trustworthy good guys there. And the fact that he came out super early says a lot about what he thinks, and maybe he'll get a position in the House or in the cabinet, because that's, who's the cabinet And then also, how much are the donors going to control you? What do they want? When they give Trump $100 million or when they give DeSantis $100 million, what's the exchange? If the base was wise, these are the two questions you guys would ask. And I don't care how mad you get at me. Ask this to Trump or ask this to DeSantis. Who are you going to hire in your cabinet? Trump's cabinet the first time was garbage, complete garbage. And he's learned nothing, but you think he's going to, but he probably hasn't. Ask him then. If you're so confident that he's going to hire outsiders, ask him. Because honestly, even his loyalists he surrounds himself by are goofballs. Sebastian Gorka is a goofball. Mike Lindell's a goofball. Like, now you have to almost be a goof to be that loyal, and you can't even have critical thinking skills, where Thomas Massey doesn't agree with DeSantis on everything, but it's like he might actually get hired. Like, who are you going to hire? And then what are you going to do with the donor money you got? These are the questions that will determine who's going to be a better president, but nobody cares because it's this whole false paradigm, fake fight, accuse them of what you're doing, and the base is just going to get tricked again.
Yeah, because and the thing is that people reveal their cards without even realizing that they're revealing it, saying things like he deserves it, like he's a boss, or he's such a G, or he's like the best market, or he's the best businessman of all time, or whatever else. It's like, yeah, and all that stuff is fine, but is that the winning message? Is that the thing that's actually going to make sense going forward? Is that going to convince, again, the 10% of people in the middle?
All business is also not good business. When, like, Trump could sell salt to a snail and water to a whale. So if you could sell a vaccine socialist scam as the greatest human achievement, yeah, you're a great businessman. You could sell NFTs. Like, Trump's a great businessman. But not all business is good business. If you're selling one of the most evil socialist pharma schemes in modern history as a great achievement that saved the world, and you're such a good salesman, you're such a good con artist that tens of millions of MAGA patriots believe you, that's not a good thing. All business is not good. You know, scams are not good. Big pharma socialism's not good. I'm not going to sit and hold his bad businesses over his head, because as an entrepreneur, you're supposed to fail, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, all business isn't good business. And I gave him 4 years to show me what his business was about. And I see that he would rather do business with Disney, Anheuser-Busch, and, you know, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson. He's so in with Johnson & Johnson, he brought the guy up on stage and tried to get his support base to cheer for Johnson & Johnson. Dude, Trump knows he has a monopoly on the minds of MAGA, where he's like laughing hysterically at his base. It's like, dude, these people all hate the vaccine. 90% of them think it's corrupt, but I'm going to put a CEO of Big Pharma on the stage, and these people will still donate to me and come to my rallies. Like, he's probably laughing behind closed doors, like, these idiots just, and I'm not calling people idiots, but it's like, you know, if people treat you like a sheep and you act like one, you know, I'm trying to be the tough friend to snap people out of it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I think where people will mischaracterize anybody that might say that, hey, I think this strategy is better, is that you dislike the guy or think that he has nefarious intent down to his core. It's like, I wholeheartedly believe that he got into it for the right reasons. I wholeheartedly believe that he loves America. And I think that his track record in New York City and so many other things proves that, and the fact that he didn't have to do it and whatever else. And nobody is slighting all of the good things that he did and could potentially do in the future. But again, none of these things really matter, other than, again, there's only one piece. It's the 10% of people in the middle. None of that shit's going to matter to them specifically. And it's like, they're not going to worry about whether or not he deserves it. They're not worried about whether or not he's a boss. They're not going to worry about whether or not he really loves America. They're going to worry about, will this help me? What's in it for me? And it's like any basic marketing 101, any entrepreneur knows that you're advertising to the benefit of the user. The best type of sale is not, here's what I have. The best type of sale is, here's what you get. And any marketing message that isn't you focused is an L. And I think a lot of people are looking at what he has and what he could do, as opposed to what they will get as a result.
Right. And these are two examples of how it's just, I don't know what he's trying to accomplish, but as far as winning and really getting the country on his side, I don't know that it's going to happen. But here's the thing. Biden's so bad that it's going to be a battle of, like, who screws up less or you know, it's going to be a lesser of two evils thing. So he might be able to pull it off. But, like, here's two things. One, the Instagram thing. I'm not mad he's selling NFTs, even if it's for personal gain. I don't care. Get your money, Donnie. Sell whatever you got to sell. Make a golf course. It's the fact that Instagram's one of the biggest platforms in the world, and Donald Trump's one of the most famous people on the planet, and he hasn't posted in 2 years. So like when Andrew Tate got out of jail, whatever he says is going to be marketing wise the thing that everybody sees. So if his team really gave a crap, they're probably a bunch of con artists and sleazeballs near him, because anybody that's loyal, they just don't tell him the truth. They just say, he could have used that for anything and then sold NFTs and sold out in 2 weeks. I don't care. But he used his platform not to say a message that's going to win him the election or independence or get people on his side or say something so real and profound that it just blows the mind of everybody and like rescues humanity from slavery. That's the first thing he did. So that shows me that he's using all of his marketing power with this most important message. If you told me this is the time where you're gonna your message is gonna be heard more than it's ever gonna be heard before, you think I'm gonna sell an NFT with that chance? It's insane. And then on Truth Social, listen, I don't know who Bill Barr is, but I didn't hire him. You know what I'm saying? He's not someone I fully trust. But Trump hired him. So it's like, what is he doing on True Social every day saying the same thing, arguing with Bill Barr when he's the one who hired him? He's like ramping up his base into like brainwashing, and they're like, oh my gosh, Bill. It's like the truth is he hired him. All you have to say is one thing. Bill Barr didn't do what I thought he did, and I didn't fire him early enough. This time, I'm going to hire someone better, and I would be like, that makes sense. Everyone makes mistakes. I have zero faith that he's learned a single thing because he's arguing with his own shadow on True Social every day. Like marketing-wise, it's dumb. It only appeals to people that obsess over him. I don't see this working. But then again, Biden is also like a brain dead, like a 90-year-old or 80-year-old. So it's like maybe he can beat Biden. You know, it's like it's a possibility it works. It's just it's not giving us the best percentage, I don't think, by any means.
Right. Well, and that's such a good point too. He literally could have posted a tile on Instagram that just said, go to truthsocial.com/Donnie. And it could have been a video that was the message of all the messages, and then all the NFTs for sale right underneath it. And it would have probably gone way further. I probably would have shared it to my story and been like, the message is out. Here's the message. We want the message to go. If this is a good message, anybody, whether they agreed with him or didn't agree with him, maybe would share it. And it's like, again, it represents a marketing blunder. And I think that this is the tough thing about Donnie's personality. If we want to get into the personality of it, is it's like, to me, and what he has said outwardly is like his primary objective is loyalty, almost like loyalty above all else, which means that you don't want to get on his bad side, even if it's correct. You want to let him make a mistake on his own, or you want to give him an idea that makes him think that it's his idea. And then, so as a result, you have all these yes men around you that end up getting fired or canceled whenever there's some big blunder, but you never have a person that can actually tell you the truth because you're not valuing their opinion. Whereas like, I have an entry-level degree, an entry-level understanding of marketing, and compared to a person that's 20 years older than me and a marketing professional. And even I can see that in clear as day. Like, this is an L. At the very least, you could have posted the video before the image. So it's like, what person said that this was the right strategy? Because it's just not. And this is, again, an indicator of a far greater problem, which is the marketing and branding message is the message. That's the end of the deal. So it's not about the NFTs. It's about what could have been done and the opportunity cost of missing that.
And Trump's done a lot of great business in his life. I don't want to take it away, but at this point, it's not surprising that he's making these type of moves. Because if you tell Trump that, like, I like loyalty too. I value loyalty, but also a loyal friend will say, you know, you have a little something on your face. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not to make, it's to help you. And if someone says, hey, like, you could do this better, you know, I did the merch recently, and people say, hey, do this better, and I'm like, thank you. But Trump, the reason he doesn't even have loyal people buy him, because true loyalty is the truth, and true loyalty is love. Right. True loyalty is not surrounding yourself by a bunch of grifters who close their mouth because they just want to use you. So it's like the people he has surrounding him are very low quality, because if there's a high quality person around him that's like Thomas Massey, that's like, hey, Trump, I like you. I've never said a bad thing about you, but this is going to be socialist. He tries to ruin your life. Yeah. Thomas Massey said Trump called him after he said that the lockdown and the CARES Act was going to be socialist. Thomas Massey said Trump called him, started cursing at him, screaming at him, saying, I'm more popular than you in Kentucky, and you're never going to work for the Republican Party again. This is who Trump is. He's not really a great person. Like, yeah, he's nice, he's funny, he's done a lot of good stuff, But if you're like, if I called Massey and be like, yo, sorry, this is kind of scammy, but I have to do it, that's one thing. But it's like, this is why he's surrounded by such low value grifters, is because anytime somebody decent's around him like Thomas Massey, he tries to ruin their life. Even Steve Bannon, like, I don't know if I fully trust Steve Bannon. I don't know him. I've never met him. I don't watch him. I'm not being disrespectful. I just don't know that much about him. I feel like he's someone that actually is worth having in your corner. You know, I think he's a smart guy. When he fired Bannon, he could have said, sorry, we had to part ways because Bannon helped him win the election. He tries to embarrass and humiliate Bannon in front of the whole world, saying he's crying like a dog. Like, dude, Trump is surrounded by low tier people because he doesn't allow high tier people near him. He gets upset anytime someone like challenges him.
No, that's right. And you're absolutely right. The truth is love. And somebody telling him what he actually needs to hear would be the most loving thing that they could do. But if you have a person that's going to just steamroll you as a result, why would anybody object to something that he puts out? That's just a great way to get yourself destroyed. That's a great way to get fired. So everybody is always going to be like, yes, sir. Like, right. Whatever you say, like, it's no problem.
Me and Bobby are going to talk about a few things behind the, I think you froze, but you should be, oh, there you are. We're going to talk about our site. It's called streamrare.com, and we're going to talk about why we did it, what we're doing with it, etc. We started our own media website and a few other topics that we didn't talk about in my Patreon and Facebook subscribers. So patreon.com/raretalk, if you guys don't know, and my Facebook subscribers, you're going to get this video. With that being said, you know, I just want to end this note. This has been a conversation. We're two tax-paying citizens, you know, people that vote Republican, and this is our opinion as a voter. Some people agree with it. Some people don't. Some people see eye to eye. Some people don't. But really, I think it's safe to say that our goal is we want to win in 2024. I can't take 4 more years of Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom. And the truth is, you know, there's a lot of just weird vibes going on in the Republican Party. There's a lot of weird, petty fighting. There's influencers like going for each other's heads every day. Trump's going for DeSantis all the time. DeSantis is going to push back now. Mike Lindell's mad at DeSantis for winning the election and says he cheated in Miami. Like, this is, we could act like this is so great. It's really not. And we all have one thing in common. Maybe there's a Biden voter here, but I don't think so. We don't want this guy to win. That's our intention. And we can't just keep tripping over our feet and then playing the victim. We tell people all the time to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and not play the victim. Even if the election got taken, we have to take accountability for why and try to make sure it doesn't happen again. If not, we're not doing anything. So that's the intention. I just want to say that.
Yeah, and I think that another thing that I think is very important for people to also realize is that there are people that are in 10, 15-year squabbles with members of their own family, their closest friends. And sometimes the simplest thing where they get together and they say, sorry, man, I really messed up. And they hug it out and all is absolved. None of this stuff needs to carry. There's a lot of delta between now and 2024. This election is not 2 months from now. There's a lot of time. So I am not by any stretch saying that Donnie couldn't turn this around and be the person that we need him to be. I just think that, just like you said, we care about the country just as much as everybody else, that they would spend their time listening to us. We all have the same interest in line. We're just trying to make it so that we're all getting the best thing. It's not about Donnie. And I do believe that if he was to change his marketing message, he could turn it around, just like a person that squabbles with someone for 10 years. A little bit of a sorry and a little bit of a here's how I'm not going to do this again changes a lot. And we could all move forward and look forward if the message was to change in that way. And that's what we're trying to do. We're not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. DeSantis is our guy. Heave ho, throw Donnie in the garbage. We're like, hey, let's hone whomever this is and get the right message there so we could actually win.
I agree. And behind the paywall on Patreon, we're going to talk about some of the influencer drama and stuff, but you guys know how I feel. Like, I'm 33 years old. I got a business to run. I love my family. Like, I got things. I don't get involved in all this stuff because I have things to do. I'm shocked that other people don't, but there's been a lot of infighting, a lot of drama, a lot of weird stories and stuff. And it's like, dude, people are acting psychotic on our own side. I don't care if people agree with me. I might rub people the wrong way, but like some of the ways like people are going at each other, we'll talk about it behind the paywall, it's ugly. And it's like, it's definitely got to stop at a certain point because it's just getting weird out there.
Agreed.
Thank you, Bobby. Let people know real quick where you can find them, and then I'm going to run my thing.
Followbobby.com. Followbobby.com. That's all my links.
All right, we're going to put this up later today on Patreon and Facebook subscribers. Thanks to everybody there. God bless. I'll be back soon. This is